Welcome to Health Vision. I'm Jackie Wolf, Associate Professor of Social Medicine at Ohio University. This is the second of a two-part series on organ donation. Today our guests are Morgan Mathews, a recipient of a donated liver, and Cynthia Tindongan, who donated her kidney in 2007. Thanks so much to both of you for being here today.
Thanks. Thank you.
Last week we talked in a very general sense about organ donation, how important it is, how few organ donors there are, how many more are needed, how many people are waiting on the transplant list and who die while they're waiting on the transplant list, the myths associated with organ donation, and mostly what you hear about organ donation is a myth. Organs aren't donated from very rarely from living people, and we'll talk about your experience, Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
But people worry so much about if I'm an organ donor, might people be anxious to harvest my organs before I die? So there's a lot of, and of course that's not the case at all. Doctors have no idea who an organ donor is. They would never, they're always working to save people's lives, and until people are dead, organs are never retrieved. So there are all kinds of myths associated. There's no age limit for organ donation. Often people don't have to worry about their health. They really examine the organs and the tissues. So we talked about all of that last week. And Cynthia, let's talk about your experience, because you are someone who made a decision that many people don't make. You decided that you wanted to donate a kidney, and you donated a kidney to someone that you didn't know. Talk about how you thought about that decision and what you had to go through to talk to people about that decision and alert people to the fact that you wanted to be a living anonymous organ donor.
Well, the decision was an easy one for me. Once I learned about it, it just kind of registered to me that this is something that I would like to do. And I have a strong belief in social justice and in service, but I don't have a lot of time or money to contribute. And I thought that I could do this. I have 2 kidneys and I only need 1. And someone could really use this, and it's not going to be that hard. And it's true, it wasn't that hard.
So for you, I mean, really, this was an extension of your social justice sensibility, that
Yes.
This was something that you wanted to do for someone.
Yes, yes. And so I began to do research and find out what I needed to do. And I ended up contacting a transplant center and going through them. And they are the ones that ultimately matched me up with the recipient of my kidney. And so as I began to talk about it with family and friends, actually I really didn't talk about it a whole lot, because as I began to talk about it, I kind of got a lot of mixed reactions.
And I would imagine some people would probably react quite negatively, that they would be quite taken aback that you had made this decision and try to talk you out of it. Was that a response that you got?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. And I tried to explain my reasons, and I tried to do some homework so that I was informed and I could talk with some authority about it and about the risks. And I really felt like it was worth the risks that to me seemed minimal. And so I began to, I talked to people about that, and I think I was able to bring some folks around. Some people seemed to understand right away why I was going to do this and why it was a good thing for me to do. And others still are puzzled, I think. But I went ahead anyway, and I had to go through lots and lots of different kinds of testing. They took lots of blood. I had urine tests. I had a scan where they had to see the function of my kidneys and make sure that they were healthy. I had to go through a psych exam.
I was just going to ask you, because it's obvious you would have to go through a physical exam, because they want to make sure that you're healthy and that your organs are healthy.
Right.
But they would also want to do a mental health screening too,
Right.
because I would imagine they want to really understand your motivation. They want to really make sure that this is something you have thought through very carefully.
Right, and that your motivation is not centered on something like, I want to save this person's life, and it's up to me. And because if the recipient died or something like that, you can imagine that would be a very big blow to someone who maybe put a little too much emphasis on not the donation itself, but their role in it, or
exactly.
if that makes sense.
Or maybe in the aftermath of the donation, being able to picture this person who's alive only because of your kidney, that would not be an appropriate thought or appropriate image to have as you go into
right.
this.
And I've actually heard donors bemoan the way that the recipient of their organs are taking care of themselves or not taking care of themselves. I gave this person this gift, and look what he's doing with his life, and I can't believe that. And I approached it with a sense of non-attachment to the result, to the outcome. Certainly I wanted to wish the recipient well and good health and good life, but I just had a little different orientation towards it.
So really simply like sharing a gift, that you are giving a gift to someone, and that was your focus.
Right, and it was a gift to me, certainly, to be able to do that.
What I'd like to do, I kind of like to flip-flop back and forth with your stories, because we've just heard a little bit of Cynthia's story in thinking through becoming an organ donor. And Morgan, let's talk about, now you're an organ recipient.
Yes, liver.
And tell us your story. I mean, what happened? I mean, obviously all our viewers can see that you're very young. You became sick in college, is that right?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, first of all, I was diagnosed with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency when I was an infant, which is 2 recessive genes. Ended up, both my parents were carriers. So I was monitored throughout my childhood at Children's Hospital in Columbus.
And what is that? Describe, what is that condition that you just described?
Alpha-1,
yeah,
it's
exactly
it's just that your liver over time is not working correctly, and by the time I was 19, my liver was shrinking in my body.
So it's a condition that affects your liver over time?
Yes, it also can affect your lungs, but luckily it did not affect my lungs. I had several testing over the years to make sure that it didn't.
So this is something you were aware of?
Yes.
Your entire life?
Yes.
And you knew that it could affect an organ, and you knew it could be serious?
Yes. The final cure in the back of my mind was always a transplant. I mean, I knew that. I was on a low salt, no salt diet my entire life, took medicine, so I've always been taking medicine. So taking medicine now is not really a big change at all. But anyways, I was diagnosed with alpha-1, and as a senior in high school, I started getting a little bit more sick, retaining fluid, going to the hospital to get an albumin infusion to get my fluid out of my body.
Now we should say the liver is a really important organ, and you feel really bad when your liver isn't functioning properly.
Yeah, for me, the feeling bad part was slowly over pretty much 2 years, so it wasn't one day I felt good and then the next day I felt bad. It was just slowly over. Like I've told many people, I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt good after my transplant.
And that's really interesting. And actually, Cynthia, because I've heard your story before, and I've heard you talk about how very sick the recipient was. So the recipient feels well, and it's almost harder on the donor, because the recipient actually goes from feeling absolutely terrible to feeling so much better quickly. Right. And then it's the donor, if the donor is alive, like you were, it's the donor then who has this long recuperation time.
Right. Although it wasn't really very long for me, and and I think that donors have to be really healthy. So sure, I was down, but not for long.